Hello my dear YouTuber friends, and I do hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video, Back to Basics part 23. All about the mixture. In this video, I'm going to explain exactly what the mixture is and mixture does. Then I'm going to take us to various different scenarios in the sim to show you the effects of the mixture, and to also show you things like the best settings through various readings that you can look at in the Cessnas. In this case I'm in the Cessna 172, but I'll also be showing you this in the Cessna 152 as well. Okay, so let's not dilly-dally. Let's get on with this video. So here we are again, Hoddesdon International, London City Airport. I'm just holding my line at the queue for the runway there. Let's get internal and let's talk about what the mixture is and what it does. Well, essentially, actually let's pull that in. Push that right in. The mixture, it mixes air and fuel into your aircraft. So let's get down to that. Let's give you a better view. So when you have the mixture full in like this, I'm just using a control on my Velocity 1 flight stick, actually my right lever, to push that in and out. When you have it full in, you're putting full fuel into the aircraft. When you lean it out, as they call it, you're mixing air into the combustion engine. Now this has a couple of uses. I'll try and link something down below, some kind of official documentation of the best sorts of mixture settings at various different levels and altitudes in the Cessnas, so the Cessna 152 or 172. I did come across something, I'll try and link that for you. When you're taking off and you're just doing short journeys and you're below 3,000 feet, let's say, altitude above sea level, effectively, you're probably best keeping that mixture full in so you got full fuel and a full whack going to the aircraft. Just because you'll be doing sort of takeoff and landings at a lower altitude. When you get above 3,000 feet, 4,000 feet, the air outside the aircraft, so the air's thinner, and you're going to find that your aircraft is going to struggle a bit. So you want to be pulling that mixture out and leaning it. So remember, it's mixing fuel, pushing it in. You're mixing air in as you lean it out. And of course, you know what's going to happen if you pull out too far. But just in case you don't, I'll show you. So I'm pulling it out, so less fuel going in, more air going into that combustion engine. Your engine's going to stop. Let's push the mixture back in and restart our engine. So yeah, there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of. Isn't this fantastic? I'm using the JP Logistics Cessna 152. I'll link my video down below in the description. Look at these dial bumping as you sort of the engine's revving up. It's calmed down now. And there's various different things. So when you're going on a sort of longer flight, at say 3,000 feet or above 3,000 feet, you want to be leaning out that mixture so you're not putting the full amount of fuel into that engine. It's conserving your fuel, so it's going to make your fuel last longer so you can fly that little bit farther. And in the JP Logistics Cessna 152 there's an option. Let's just bring up the iPad. I think it's instruments, there we go. It's an option to show the EGT, which is this dial here. So what is the EGT? Well, this stands for exhaust gas temperature. And when you're flying at a certain altitude in the Cessna 172, 152 or other aircraft that has an EGT, I don't think normally Cessna 152s do have. People can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I don't believe a lot of them do have an EGT dial or reading. But you want to effectively get this EGT reading at the most efficient point it can get to when you're in an when you're cruising along and you're trying to conserve fuel. Try and get the needle. It's got a couple of needles. This yellow one is the bug, EGT bug, and you can put this, so if you want to set this at a certain point and you want the white needle, when we're up in the air, you're going to see that white needle come up to around about here with the mixture full in. You want to get this up as high as possible to give you the most efficient, just to keep this simple, mixture setting with using your mixture. The most efficient mixture of fuel and air in your engine. I believe in the old days, the exhaust gas temperature, you could simply look at it back in the day, way back, and you could see by the colour. So if you didn't have an EGT dial or reading, you simply see by the colour of the exhaust that you have the most efficient mixture of fuel and air in your combustion engine. I don't want to go into too much detail or too much depth with that. I want to keep it simple. It is a back to basics video. But when we get up in the air, I'm going to show you this in practice. I'm going to try and get the EGT reading to be at the most efficient points it can be at. And typically in the Cessna 152, you would look at your RPM dial. You want that to be at the most efficient point, along with your speed dial as well. But I'll be showing you that up in the air. You can do a little bit of further reading on this if you want to get into more depth. I'm just going to try and keep it simple. What I'm going to do is taxi on to our runway. So let's get back to my normal view there. There we go. I'll keep taxiing along, taxi on the runway. I'll set my autopilot. It's actually set, as you can see down below here, to 4,500 feet. I'm going to climb up to that altitude and show you a little bit of the EGT reading dial there. How I'm going to try and get it to the maximum performance. And of course that'll be using our mixture lever. So I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so I've got up to altitude. I'm actually just over 4,000 feet altitude. That will do fine. Let's just pop down. Ignore the yellow line here on the EGT. That's just the bug that you can manipulate. This is the actual EGT reading. That's not optimal. Mixture setting here is not, it's falling at over 4,000 feet altitude, simply not at the most optimal setting. So what we're going to do there, I'm actually going to pull out, using my lever on my Velocity 1 flight stick, I'm going to lean that mixture. Keep an eye on this EGT. Let's get you a closer view of that. This needle here on the EGT dial. I'll pull that out. I can be quite liberal at this altitude, so let's pull it out about 80% or to 80%. Now we can go a little bit further. Keep an eye here. You should see that needle start to rise. And effectively, I want to find the biting point where, I'm going to call it the biting point anyway, it's a good way of thinking about it, where it's not going to rise anymore or it's not going to fall. So I'll keep pulling it out to see if it keeps rising. I'm also going to keep an eye, you can just see, let's just move the screen slightly for you there, RPM, you can see that rising slightly as well. You want to find the optimal point by leaning out that mixture. So we're leaning in a bit of air to that combustion engine. You can also see my speed slowly, slightly climbing there. There you go, that needle's definitely rising now. I'm just going to lean this mixture out a little bit more, till we find the point where it doesn't climb anymore. You see everything's climbing that little bit more there. Keep an eye on all the dials as you're leaning out your mixture. A little bit more. We don't want to go too far, otherwise we're going to stall the engine. I reckon that's our maximum efficiency for our mixture. Just going to lean out a bit more, and look what happens. Should start to fall if I lean it out too far. I can see that. Lean it out a little bit more. I can see that falling now. So there you go. I pulled it out too much, the mixture, so I put too much air into the engine. I'm going to push it in a little bit further. And I would say I'm probably around 60% there at my current altitude. just going to find the most efficient point for that EGT reading. And I reckon it's around about there, just from testing. Not very scientific, but there you go. It's rising a bit more. Our speed dial here is probably at its most efficient, and our RPM. So that's effectively how you would lean out your mixture. And what's happening there now, we're conserving fuel. We're not putting as much fuel into that engine. We're getting sort of our most efficient EGT reading, probably our most efficient speed for this altitude, and our most efficient RPM from the engine as well. Okay, so that's how you do it. So Cessna, so the default Cessna 152, that doesn't have an EGT reading, I believe. Just look at your RPM. Pull your mixture out. See, the RPM is at its highest. Keep an eye on speed as well. But you're going to be looking at your RPM if you don't have an EGT dial. Keep pulling it out. If you see the RPM drop slightly, you know you've gone too far. So just find the biting point for that mixture setting, and you should be at your most efficient setting. Okay, well that's in the Cessna 152. Let's now show you something in the Cessna 172 that does have an EGT reading at a higher altitude airport. So here we are now, Cessna 172. We're at Paro Airport, ICAO code VQPR. I've actually showed this in one of my other videos. You can see we're at an altitude at the airport of over 7,000 feet above sea level. Our poor Cessna 172 is going to struggle here. It's interesting, by default, I don't have auto mixture on. I've got all my settings off under assistant options, but it has put the mixture slightly out. It's probably at the most optimal part. It seems to have, I've got my mixture setting full in on my Velocity 1 flight stick, but it's loaded us in at probably a most optimal mixture there. What I'm going to do though, I'm going to push that back in just to show you the effects. So let's not hesitate here. Let's go. You're going to find this is going to be sluggish. So what I'm going to do, as we're taxiing along here, you want to stay on the runway, get as much speed as you can at this altitude before you take off. It's very sluggish though. I'm just going to pull that mixture out. Oh, not the speed, the mixture. There you go, you can see, you can probably hear a difference with that engine. I'll just keep it there for now. And we'll get up in the air. You can probably hear immediately and see that the engine's responding much better. You're letting a bit of air into that combustion engine at this altitude. It's going to thank you for that. And we're gaining speed nicely. It's going to push the nose, my joystick forward there, just to keep the aircraft on the ground. Gain as much speed as possible before taking off. Very important when you're flying. I don't think you would normally fly a Cessna within these regions, but we are, just for science. There we go. 70 knots, that will do. And we're going to take off. And I'm just be careful when don't climb at a higher altitude. You notice there, our speed is not thanking us for that. Our Cessna's not thanking us. If you're flying in these regions, go into a slight climb here. Nothing much more than that. Otherwise, you're going to find that speed drop and you'll be at stall speed in no time. There you go. We're climbing slightly. What I'm going to do, as we're flying around, let's try and give you the best look here. The best view, rather. So I'm going to pull that mixture out just to see if I can encourage that speed. There we go. We're speeding up a little bit more there. I've just pulled it out. I'm going to try and find the optimal setting here in the Cessna 172. Scrolling a little bit there, you can see the EGT reading here on the Cessna 172 is over here with the G1000s. To our right, G1000. I'm just going to watch, I'm just trimming so we're not climbing too rapidly there. You want to be in a slight climb because we just don't have the speed for anything else here. And I'm going to continue just pulling out that mixture slightly. And I'm going to look at that EGT readings just to see if I can get it at the most optimal level. In this case it's a line. It's a marker on a line there. The most optimal level for our current altitude. And as you pull out the mixture, you might find that the aircraft's trimming up a little bit. Just be aware of that. Just keep an eye on your climb level there. I'm just pulling out the mixture a little bit more. We're not far from our optimal level. Again, I'm just controlling that rate of climb, so we're not climbing too rapidly. I believe it's about round about there. I'll show you what happened here. Keep an eye on this dial. If I pull out that mixture too far, there we go. Now that EGT is reading very optimally. That's our mixture setting at the moment. If I keep pulling that out, look what's going to happen. You're going to put too much air into that engine, and you're going to find the aircraft's not going to thank you for it at all. There we go. EGT's still slightly climbing, so I'm almost there at the most optimal level we can be at for our mixture. Just watch my rate of climb again. Keep an eye on your rate of climb as you're pulling out your mixture. There you go. EGT's dropping, so I pulled out that mixture too far now. And if I'm not careful, I'm just pushing it back in again. The aircraft's going to go... Basically, you're going to lose speed, and you're going to find yourself in a stall situation. So I'm just pushing in that EGT... the mixture again, rather. Just so we can get that EGT back at its optimal level. Takes a bit of practice. Be patient with it. There we go. Is that EGT rising? It's rising slowly. I can see it. A little bit more. And it's around about there. With our mixture setting, there you go, that EGT is rising. That we got the most optimal mixture setting there. What's that, around 50 to 60%, which is about right. That's about our most optimal mixture setting. And even though we're climbing quite rapidly, our aircraft's responding quite nicely at this altitude. And you can go for a nice fly around at quite a high altitude above sea level there. We don't want to keep climbing too much, so we can even level off there, and you will find that we have a pretty optimal setup for the Cessna 172. Fantastic. There we go. See, you can see the speed is even building there. So fantastic. So there you go, chaps. That's the mixture setting. That's the video, back to basics video about the mixture setting and how to use it and how to find your most optimal mixture setting for various altitudes. Give it a go. Give it a practice. I'm using the mixture quite a lot, especially when I'm climbing to altitude now in various different aircraft, so give that a try yourself. Let me know your thoughts on the video. Give it a like if it's been helpful to you. Subscribe for more, many more of these flight simulator videos on their way. And I'll see you soon.